Welcome to another edition of the fabulous podcast you know and love, Final Ventures.
Fabulous. I like that.
Had to work in fabulous.
Yeah, that's great.
In this episode, we're going to do something a little bit different that we've neglected.
Yes.
She-sides.
She-sides. I love it.
And with March being International Women's Month, and we just passed International Women's Day, we thought, hey, let's focus on female artists.
This show's kind of, we probably should have done it a long time ago because we've been talking about it for a long time. And we could do others. There's no shortage of female artists, be it rock artists, pop artists, country, to talk about. So that's what we thought we'd do today. And what is your first example that you're going to speak about?
Well, I'm going to first talk about not Bananarama. I just wanted that up there because, hey, there's three beautiful women, and this was a banger of a record.
Yeah. In the 80s, man, you couldn't go anywhere and not hear them. And it's kind of still like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So my first one is the Raincoats.
Oh.
And you may not know this band.
I don't.
They do a cover of Lola on this that is amazing.
Yeah.
Just, I love that song. I mean, Lola is probably, by the Kinks, is probably one of my top 10 favorite songs.
I was just getting ready to say, you don't even have to point out that it's a favorite Kinks song. It's a favorite song because when you take into consideration the subject matter and the time when they released it, Ray Davies has no fear. I've never heard of this, but I love the cover.
So the Raincoats, this came out in 79, self-titled release. And they're a post-punk band. They're an English rock band. They kind of were lost in the sea of dudes. They are amazing. It's one of those bands that, bring it up that I don't think you'd ever heard of them.
I've never heard of them.
But they're fabulous. I mean, they only have, what is it? Like 4 releases. By 86, they were kind of out of the game. 3 of the 4 members were living in squats.
This is from 79?
In Brixton, yeah.
It doesn't surprise me that it was difficult for them to break through at that point. Because
you've got the Clash, the Sex Pistols, all these guy bands.
Ramones. All the LA bands.
Yeah.
That's not a shock to me. But I can't believe that I've not heard their version of Lola.
It's pretty darn great. This was very much improvised DIY type of music.
Really?
I mean, they're a lot like they remind me of what Wet Leg is today. They really do. They're talk singers, so they check that box.
Yeah. Ding.
But man, if You've really got to check it. And this is the entry point. This is the only thing I have by him, but I mean, I love every single song on it.
Is there a member of the band that has gone on to a solo career or that's part of another band that we know today?
I don't think so. No.
How long have you had this?
I haven't had it a super long time. I've had it maybe 4 years. I heard the song, where did I hear it?
NPR?
I think I know like a cover station I was listening to.
Okay.
They just did covers, and I'm like, I got to get that.
That's awesome.
And then I think I found it on a online retailer somewhere because I've never, ever seen this pop up anywhere.
How's the rest of the record?
It's great.
Is it? That's great. I love the cover. Can I turn it around and take a look at it?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, Keith. Oh, that's cool.
There they are.
I love that. That is awesome.
4 women just rocking it.
That's very cool.
This is the re-release. This isn't an original. And the liner notes are by Kurt Cobain.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Wow. So he was a fan.
Oh, yeah.
That's interesting. I'm going to have to check that out. I'm one of those dorks that the only reason I know, like, so many people who are in bands and so many producers and things like that is because I would literally get a record or a CD and pour through the liner notes. And that was about as much reading as I did when I was growing up. So
now, Paste magazine calls this one of the top 50 best post-punk albums ever.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to have to give it a listen.
Yeah.
We need a turntable here.
Yes, we do.
We should have like a listening party where we don't record the audio of the music, but we react to it while it's playing.
Yeah, and if you're in a radio station, you want us on the radio.
Yeah.
We're open.
We're willing to take this radio show that is disguised as a podcast and broadcast it over the airwaves to tens of people. We're ready to do that.
Hundreds.
That's our appeal. Hundreds. Well, that's a good one to start with.
Yeah.
I really like I like starting with the unexpected. Now we're going to go to what might be the expected to some people.
Ooh.
But when I think of trailblazing female artists, I think of Tina Turner.
Absolutely.
If you've seen What's Love Got to Do with It, you know the trials and travails she went through in her relationship with Ike. And this was her 4th studio album. This has become the linchpin of her post-Ike and Tina career. And if you remember in the 80s after this came out, you could not get away from Tina Turner.
No.
And
she was big in the 80s.
Yeah, and isn't that odd that a mostly R&B black female artist just took over? I mean, she was blazing that racial trail at the same time that Prince was, and at the same time a lot of these artists were doing the same thing. And she was doing it by selling millions of records and having hits.
She'd been around a while. I mean, with her and Ike.
Right. This was released in 1984 on May 29th on Capitol Records, for those of you playing the home game. This just became a worldwide sensation. She was a little bit older at this point. I want to say she was like 35 when this happened, which isn't exactly the age
that you rise to rock stardom.
Right. And that's what she became, was a rock star.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to turn this around, and we're going to read through these songs. I Might Have Been Queen, What's Love Got to Do with It, Show Some Respect, I Can't Stand the Rain, Better Be Good to Me, Holly Knight song. I think it was recorded originally by Holly Knight's original band. I think it was called Spider. I could be wrong about that. There's a lot of useless knowledge up here. Let's Stay Together, 1984, Steel Claw, and Private Dancer. And I love the back cover of this.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she was always known for her legs, even in Ike and Tina performances. And you know, you use what you got. I was always a fan of Tina Turner. I didn't even know the history of her and Ike. And she is an inspiring artist, you know, for me and for millions and millions of women out there. And every time I hear her voice, man, it's just, she's a rock star.
Oh, yeah. And she's an amazing performer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, even now, I've seen her pop up on award shows.
Yeah.
She brings it.
Kudos to Tina. She just keeps chugging along. Rolling on the river. What's your next one?
Well, we'll kind of saunter through the decades.
I like that word.
Saunter?
Yeah.
Or maybe through the decades. Saunter through the decades with the Thompson Twins.
Oh, gosh. I love these guys.
And
what a strange band.
Yeah. And they were a trio. This came out, and I picked Here's to Future Days. I mean, in a way, this is more about the band and the women than the albums.
Right. I mean, the artists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were so big in the 80s. This was one of the bands I saw for free on spring break in 83. Yeah.
I'm so jealous of your college days.
Well, it was amazing. There was a different concert every night.
That was free.
That was free. There was alcohol flowing like mad. I think they were sponsored by Molson. But they had this cool set where they did this almost shadow puppet thing. And so they were behind the shadow puppet doing the song.
Oh, okay. So it's performance art as well.
Yeah.
That's right up your alley.
Well, yeah. But this was probably their big selling album.
This has Don't Mess with Dr. Dream, Lay Your Hands on Me, Future Days, Roll
King
Over.
for a Day.
King for a Day. That's
that
another
was the
great
big one, yeah.
Yeah. What year?
This came out in 85.
85. So I think their first one came out in 82 or 83, right?
Yeah, their first one that had Doctor.
And I think that was self-titled.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I have that one, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I didn't even think to bring that. Now, when we first started talking about this, they were one of the first 80s like post-punk bands that I thought of.
Oh, really?
Because they were just so different. One of the big things is, if you think about it, the 80s had singer-songwriters, like Christopher Cross, Stephen Bishop, Elton John had a heyday in the 80s. And then you had groups like Tears for Fears, whose entire career just exploded in the 80s, and Thompson Twins. And the interesting thing between having a black male, a white male, and a woman in the group, I think just lent to the MTV
Oh, yeah. They were
coverage.
They were made for coverage.
Yeah.
And look at that. I mean, the best thing is, look at that hair. They all
yeah.
have incredible hair.
Yeah.
I don't know what the baby's doing. It's a random baby.
Yeah. Well,
the baby's not in the band. If you're wondering and you're watching this, the baby is not in the band. Well, the baby's a prop.
The baby would be what, like almost 40 now?
Yeah.
Or maybe older than that.
Yeah. Here's to future days.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Maybe there's something. Maybe the baby represents their adolescence and the future that they couldn't see.
Let's go with that.
I don't know. I'd love to pick their brain about it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to me. Were you a fan of them at the time? Because you saw them live?
They were one of the bands in that whole new wave genre that I picked up on early.
That's awesome.
You're up. What do you got?
My next one is an artist that I'm not super familiar with, and I just got this. This is Extraordinary Machine by Fiona Apple. This is her third studio album, released on Epic Records, October 4, 2005. And this album took years to record. And I'm pretty sure that she recorded it and they weren't happy with the results. So then they re-recorded the album over 2004 and 2005. And it was eventually released more than 3 years after the original recording sessions began. I love Fiona Apple. I'm not steeped in her music, but Mr. Russell, who we mention on the show occasionally, he's a huge fan. And he pointed out to me that this was being released, I think, 4 or 5 months ago. So I pre-ordered it on Vinyl Me Please. I don't usually buy the Vinyl Me Please stuff. And then it took a while, but I think I got this about 2 months ago. And I love the artwork. And
what's the cover? The cover kind of freaks me out.
I'm not even sure, man. I don't even know if I want to know. But I think it might be a flower.
It's
like a close-up of a flower.
Maybe a flower getting ready to bud.
Yeah, maybe. I got this out last night, and the vinyl is like a green and blue tie-dye mixture.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's beautiful. And actually, before the show, I meant to get one of those out so I could have easy access to it and not have to pick it up and struggle with it, but I didn't. This record has 12 songs on it.
And there's some extras on this because it's a re-release, right?
Yep. I think this went to 7 on the U.S. Top 200 charts.
When did it come out?
October 4, 2005. And she's marching to the beat of her own drum and has since the very beginning. She's just out. I mean, she just is out there, but she seems to always just have her mind and everything aimed in the right direction. And Well,
in that time when in 2005, I think the Lilith Fair was still raging big time.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of really premier female artists at the Lilith Fair.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really when, hey, women started to become a big part of the music industry. I prefer female singers.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I mean, I don't have a preference either way. There's some female singers that I think are completely unmatched. One of which is Janis Joplin. I mean, her voice, her persona, her star rising and falling right when it did. I mean, that story is as old as time. I just love her voice. So I'm digging into Fiona, and I'm gonna try to dig into the other releases of hers and
I need to
see what
explore
happens.
that a bunch more. I remember seeing this pop up, and I'm like,
You're one of the very few people who I would let borrow a record if you wanted to. So
yeah, she's definitely somebody I want to listen to.
well, maybe you take the first one, I'll take the second one home, and we can switch next week.
That'd be weird.
Who's next on your list?
Next, well, I said I was going to saunter through the decade. I'm going to stay in the 80s.
Sweet. Oh, because you love these guys.
Yeah. Yaz. Upstairs at Eric's. And this was Lady D's.
I just love the fact that she put that on there. I mean, those were the only labels you had available back then.
Lady D.
Lady D. Do you know who Lady D is?
I don't know, but she had great taste in music.
I mean, if she's going to the trouble of, getting the old school label maker out there and putting Lady D, maybe she's famous.
Yeah, she could be.
Tell us a little about Yaz.
Yaz. Well, it's a duo, and the female duo is Alison Moyet. And Alison Moyet, you've probably heard of her solo work, but this is one of those albums that I don't think it had a lot of airplay in the 80s, but anybody who's into 80s music knows about Yaz, Upstairs at Eric's.
I know this is one of your favorites.
I love this album.
Isn't this a favorite of you and your wife?
Yeah, my wife. This is probably, I would say it's one of her top 10 favorite albums. And when I came home with this, she was just like blown away.
You're scoring those points.
Yeah.
You're scoring those record collector points.
Well, if you're a digger and you have albums, you want to make sure, and you have a significant other at home, you got to take care.
Yeah.
You got to take care of the habit.
Yep. Have you been a fan of these guys since the beginning? Because they weren't necessarily a mainstream band.
No. It's just one of those bands. I always liked the songs, and it's very dance music.
Okay.
It's not rock and roll per se. It's more dance.
Okay. Cool. The cover is interesting.
Yeah.
You got the guy's legs here, the torso and head of the guy on the table, and the torso and head of the guy over here, and then his legs over there.
Because they're upstairs at Eric's.
I'm not going to Eric's if that's how it happens.
You get severed.
Sire Records, by the way, the old Sire logo.
So, Melody Maker, a big UK magazine, hailed Upstairs at Eric's as an album of rich, dark passion.
Well, it sounds like a compliment.
Peaked at number 73 in the Billboard Top 100 in the U.S.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not bad.
Yeah.
That's not bad at all.
No.
Especially for more avant-garde dance music.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Well, that's cool. What? And there were 3 singles off of this?
Yes. Only You.
Okay.
Which I think if you put it on, you'd recognize that song.
Mm-hmm.
Only You, Don't Go, and Situation.
You've talked about this before.
Oh,
this,
have I? I didn't know. Yeah.
I think so.
Well, I knew the Lady D. As soon as I pulled it down, I'm like, oh, I've talked about that before.
And the hype sticker is actually on the jacket.
And you talked about that before.
Did I?
Now I'm remembering.
Yeah?
You love the hype sticker on the jacket. Muffler time.
That was the delivery truck that was late delivering our research.
Hey, quickly going back to the wives, you need to call it vinyl and unwind.
instead of Netflix and chill.
Yes.
The problem is you've only got about 22 minutes aside.
Yes. Well,
I mean, it takes a little while to get into the groove. Anyway, I think I did. Now that you mention it, I think I did talk about the hype sticker being on that before. But you know why I love that? It's because I keep the hype stickers, as we know, even the round ones that are bullshit, and I put them in the plastic jacket, the plastic sleeve of my records, and every time I take it out, they fall out, but it's worth it.
I like that you keep everything together. I've got all my hype. Well, I didn't used to keep them.
And then I planted that bug in your head.
You planted the bug in my head. So
You're welcome.
Now I keep them, but I keep them. It's a project.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all in a sleeve, and I'll eventually do a collage and a poster.
That's cool. On the same tip, ticket stubs. People, I'm starting to see ticket stub albums that are almost like old photo albums.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a cool idea. And that's also a cool idea for hype stickers, even the bullshit round ones. That's a great call.
Yeah.
Since you've
it had to be on here again.
Yeah, absolutely. I get you. This one's out of left field a little bit. It's Moms Mabley, and she was a black stand-up comedian. She was born in 1894, passed away in 1975. Her real name is Loretta Mary Aiken, but she's known by her stage name as Jackie Moms Mabley. And she was an American stand-up comic and actress. She began her career on the theater stage in the 20s and became a veteran entertainer of the Chitlin circuit of African-American vaudeville. Mabley recorded comedy albums and appeared in films and on television programs, including The Ed Sullivan Show, The Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, and many more. And it's interesting because listening to stand-up on albums was such a huge thing. You know, back in the 60s and 70s, it really took off. And I love George Carlin dearly. And his albums have both stand-up, they have skits, and believe it or not, this was at my parents' house. This is one of the records that my parents had, and I still haven't taken all the records from the house. Sorry about that, Mom and Dad. But I was flipping through a few, and I saw Moms Mabley on here, and I just thought, wow, how cool is it that they have a Moms Mabley record? And it's a different experience than sitting down and listening to music when you're listening to a stand-up comedian or a comedy album. I mean, Bob Newhart became huge for his comedy albums. I mean, that basically made his career. You had George Carlin, you had Cheech and Chong. You know,
oh yeah, the Cheech and Chong records were massive in the 70s.
They're just classic, and they got airplay.
Yeah.
You know? But Moms Mabley, what made me want to bring this record is because my wife and I are watching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which might be one of the best TV shows ever in every aspect, acting, writing, costume design, set design. It's just fantastic. And one of the recent episodes, Mrs. Maisel ran into Moms Mabley when she was performing at the Apollo Theater.
Oh.
Yeah. So
I love that show. I don't remember. I mean, I'm not surprised at all. And we don't talk about comedy albums much.
No. And you know, I've toyed with the idea of doing a comedy album show. I don't know how many comedy albums you have, but
not many.
I've got some Bill Cosby, who people don't talk about much anymore. Bob Newhart, George Carlin, Moms. I mean, you know, it's a totally different art form.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. But I think it lends itself. And, you know, they used to have parties. A lot of these records, like Red Fox's records.
Oh, Red Fox's records.
They were considered party records, and they weren't
They're
talked
very
about.
blue.
Very blue, and they weren't talked about in the mainstream. So people would have parties and just listen to these records. I mean, that's the whole reason that the get-together happened. And I just think that's a cool idea.
Yeah.
And it just reminds me that we need to do the listening party thing. So Moms Mabley, out on a limb. Go give her a listen because she's really, really a funny funny old lady. I mean, she's playing a character.
Yeah.
But this was at a time when people saw, she would play the Apollo or be on a television show. People saw this character and thought that was the person.
Yeah.
There was no line between the character and the real person. And I kind of think I kind of miss those days. Like, I also kind of miss those days when nobody knew what the guys in Kiss looked like.
Yeah.
And every time you saw a press picture or paparazzi photo of them, I just knocked my mic over. Every time you saw one of these photos of them, half of their face was covered up.
Yeah.
It's just, more innocent days.
Very true.
Yeah.
Okay, so next, and I know I'm hoping I haven't talked about this one before. If I have, we'll
replace it.
Yes.
You've got a few extras. I don't think you have.
Good.
Yeah. You brought the first one before.
I brought the yellow one.
Yep.
This is the red one.
Man,
the B-52s.
It's another one I completely missed.
They were, I mean, they're almost a novelty act, and they're dressed like they're in the 50s with these beehive hairdos.
Yeah.
But they were so much fun.
Oh, have you ever seen them?
No, they're doing a show in Vegas.
Are they?
Yeah.
Are they doing a residency?
Yes.
Oh, where
limited residency.
Where at?
At the Venetian.
When?
I think they have one even in May.
Oh,
I'd love to see them.
Let's go.
I'm
serious.
really want to go.
We're deciding right here. We're going. I'd love to go see that.
Because after this, they're done. This is their last year. And unlike other artists, they will be done.
Yeah. The farewell tour and the last show stuff is all absolute BS.
Yeah.
There are bands out there that have been on their farewell tours for 7 years. There's one of them out there did their farewell tour in 2000, 2001. That band's called Kiss. And I was there for 2 shows. And then, 21 years later, they're doing it again. Don't take any of this farewell bullshit seriously. But yeah, I think you're right about these guys. Yeah.
Well, and because they've lost a few members.
Yeah, and they don't want to tour.
No.
And a residency for a band that is older, which most of these huge artists that we look up to are, a residency is great because they play the show, then they get off stage and they hop in an elevator and they're in their room.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little about Wild Planet.
Wild Planet came out in 1980, and it was their follow-up to their wildly successful
first record,
B-52s record. They came out, I think, 1979.
Oh.
So on Wild Planet, there's some amazing songs. Party Out of Bounds. They're a party band.
Yeah.
I mean, they've kind of become known as the party band.
Yeah.
I mean, because they don't do ballads. Every one of their songs is a party.
It's upbeat.
You better be ready to dance.
Yeah. My favorite on here is Private Idaho. That's such a good song.
I love Quiche Lorraine. But I mean, Strobe Light, there's so many great songs.
Yeah, they're such a great band. And, when they really exploded was with Love Shack. And I think that was 88 or 89. So that's like 10 years, probably 15 years after they started. Do you know where they're from?
Athens, Georgia.
Athens, Georgia. Okay. Well, that makes total sense.
Yeah, REM, the whole...
Yeah.
I mean, that whole Athens, Georgia scene produced so many marvelous bands.
You know what we should do? I mean, I know we always come up with ideas for shows, but a Athens, Georgia band show would be good. Because there's a bunch.
We'll go down to Athens and do it there.
Hey, we can do it. Keith will pack up all the equipment, the live streaming stuff, and we'll do it. But what I was going to say was in the 80s, in the late 80s, it was kind of that 50s thing coming back. Now we're here, in 2023, and, the 90s is kind of having a revival. It's just so interesting how cyclical it is. But what I was going to say was I don't think these guys were taken seriously at that time. because Love Shack, like you said, kind of came across as a novelty song. But when you listen to it now, if that comes on, I'm listening to the whole song.
And I think all their songs were never taken super serious, but that's okay. They were okay with it because they're a party band.
Yeah, it's kind of an antidote to everything that was going on.
Yeah.
Like all of the if you think about it, I don't know when they officially started as a band, but it was probably in the mid-'70s.
Yeah.
And, you had punk. Well, first you had pop, disco, punk, post-punk, rock. And, people wanted to hear stuff that was upbeat. People didn't want to be depressed all the time, and they were the antidote to that.
Yeah, they started in 76.
76. So, good guess. Athens, Georgia. And I just love the whole look that Fred Schneider is a character, man.
Fred is a very big character.
Yeah. I mean, who he reminds me of? John Waters.
Yeah.
By the way he looks.
I think he would love to hear that too.
Yeah. I mean, and maybe that's what he was going for. But that's a great call, man. I don't have this on vinyl. I need to get it.
Oh, I made a point of, and you can find pretty much everything by the B-52s for a reasonable price.
Yeah, $19-20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I made a point of getting everything.
That's awesome. Good call, man. That's a really good one.
What's your favorite B-52 song of all time?
Rock Lobster.
Rock Lobster.
Without a doubt.
I like Legal Tender too.
But yeah, they're just a great feel-good band. And it's so funny because when they became so huge, Love Shack just exploded, and they were everywhere.
They were.
That doesn't sit too well with me, no matter who the artist is. So it took a few years for me to have some love for the B-52s, but that's awesome. That's great. My next one is Taylor Swift. This is the only Taylor Swift album I have. This is Red, Taylor's version. So I think most of you guys know that this is a re-recorded version of her album Red, so that she can take control of the rights of the album from the record company that originally released it. And I think this came out in 21, and it would fluctuate in price. It's a double album, and it would go up and it would come back down. It would go up. I caught this at a time where I think I got this for like $21 or $22, which is ridiculous that we're talking about that like it's close to free. But I know it's going for more than that now. But this has 30 songs on it and includes re-recorded versions of 20 songs from the deluxe edition of Red, the 2012 charity single. Ronan, the 10-minute long unabridged version of All Too Well, and Swift's own recordings of Better Man from 2016 and Babe in 2018, and 6 previously unreleased songs from the vault. So she is one, even though I'm not like a huge fan of the music, I'm just a huge fan of the way that she handles herself and the way that she presents herself and controls her career. And a lot of people that attain that level of stardom kind of lose touch with the community that got them there. And the one thing that I gather from her, the way that she handles herself, is that she's always remembering that she wouldn't be there without the fans.
Oh yeah, she is. And we've said it before, but I think she's the most influential music artist going today. And certainly one of the most influential in vinyl. I mean, her releases on Record Store Day, when you're in line at a record store with a bunch of old dudes and there's this girl dressed up like Taylor Swift, you've got all these old guys waiting in line and then this 14-year-old girl.
I think Bill said it during our last Deep Disc Dive. She's a punk rock star right now.
Oh yeah,
because she's certainly at the top of her game in the pop category, but I think her attitude and her music. I mean, when you're starting to see Taylor Swift records with parental advisory stickers, I mean, she's as close to punk rock as any pop star is.
She's very much like a Joan Jett.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't hurt that she's beautiful, talented, writes her own music. That checks every box for me.
She's a really great songwriter. I'm not crazy about her voice. It's too perfect for me, but her songwriting is phenomenal.
Yeah. And she's been doing it since she was a kid.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing is the writing your own music is huge.
Oh, yeah.
One of my favorite artists that writes her own music and has from the beginning is Shania Twain. And she's another one. I'm not a huge fan of all the music, but I just love the fact that she writes her own music.
Yeah.
And she's got a new record out now too. I just had to get this when it was available for a decent price. I mean, and you never know, I may be a Swiftie.
You could be.
After listening to it a few times.
Get your skirt ready.
I love the picture on the back too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Very film noir.
Yeah. She's great. I've always respected her as an artist, even in the early days. I mean, it was, I think she was 15 or maybe 16 when she got her first record deal. And she took control of everything immediately. Now, obviously, she's had that head-to-head battle with that record
company. It's taken a while, but I think all the record companies see the power she wields, and they're like,
"Yeah,
you take it all because hey, good things will happen."
Yeah. Well, this is a kind of an extreme example of what I was talking about with like Twisted Sister. A lot of these artists who were huge in the 80s or whatever decade and had bad record deals, like, are re-recording their music. And that's exactly what she's doing. All of these albums she's re-recording, and there's extra stuff on it. Obviously it's a new version. But hey, whatever it takes to take back the power that people are trying to steal from you.
Yeah, I'm usually not a huge fan of the re-recorded stuff, but she's doing it at while the stuff's still pretty fresh.
Yeah, yeah.
That it's not really a different song; it's the same song, and she owns it.
And it's just interesting to hear the different takes.
Yeah.
In the 10, 12 years that it's been. So
yeah.
I really wanted to just take a look at this. This is a gatefold. Look at that! I got that right out of there. I'm gonna open this. There's a really nice picture of her at the piano in here that I like. And, yeah, I mean, there are no holds barred when it comes to her releases. I mean, she does it right.
Yeah, she really does.
Yeah. So, who would have thought that I'd bring a Taylor Swift?
No, I'm glad you did, because she's certainly the main artist going today who needs to be on this.
Like I said, it's not conscious. But so much of both of our collections are made up of males, of dudes. So I think it's good to take the time out and point out some of these artists, maybe not necessarily the albums that we love, but these artists that we like and respect, and these artists that deserve the respect.
Yeah, and I think also we're hoping to introduce you, our audience, to stuff that maybe you didn't have on your radar.
Right.
Like, ooh, I'm going to give that a listen.
Yeah.
I'm going to try that out.
We've been a lot more visible on social media thanks to Keith Toombs and Jacob Hansen. We've got video content on our YouTube page. We want you to subscribe to that stuff. But the reason I bring this up is because that added coverage on social media, I see the numbers of how many women and how many men those go to. And we've got about a 65-35 split, at least on social media.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. It's not necessarily I'd love that to be a lot more even than it is, but I mean, there's just no way around the fact that vinyl collecting is a male-dominated thing. And
that's mainly because it's kind of silly.
Well, not only that, I don't mean
silly. I just mean
it is kind of silly, but the thing that you have to remember is that we're coming back from a time when people didn't have any physical media.
Right.
there was a time when nobody was buying CDs or records. And what gives me hope and makes me feel great about all of this is every record show I go to, I see more kids, both girls and boys, at these record shows. And I just think that, I think the future of physical media and the music industry is in good hands with these generations coming up.
Yeah, it's weird. It almost skipped. It almost skipped a generation
or two.
Yeah, or two.
Yeah,
I mean, because really, the kids. We don't see a lot of kids much older than 20.
Right. But then I'm seeing all ages of folks. I'm seeing all cultures in there, and that's what I love about the shows, is it's open to and there for anybody, and so many people are buying physical media now. And there's a good and a bad thing to that. I mean, the record companies are making money hand over fist with vinyl, because they're charging a hell of a lot more than they're paying to produce it and to distribute it. But people aren't stealing it, and I feel like more money is going to these artists, which is going to do nothing but benefit them and benefit the quality of what they're putting out.
Well, and if you look at a store like Urban Outfitters that caters to a much younger crowd, they have a bunch of vinyl.
And record players.
Yeah. Urban Outfitters probably has more vinyl than Best Buy.
Yeah.
And they rival Target. And I mean, it's a wide swath.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff they have at Urban Outfitters is everything from new releases, bands that I've never even heard of, to, like The Who.
Or Taylor Swift.
Yeah, or Taylor Swift. And
Yeah.
they have jazz.
Yeah.
It's wild, the selection of music they have at Urban Outfitters.
Yeah, it's encouraging. Urban Outfitters, Crate and Barrel was selling vinyl. I don't think they do anymore.
No, they don't anymore.
But yeah, there's a lot. Aldi would have records. So there's a lot of places that you can get vinyl. And I just think there's more of an awareness about it. And doing podcasts and video podcasts about it doesn't hurt either.
No.
All right. What's your next one?
Next. Well, I'm still stuck in the 80s.
Sweet.
Sweet Dreams by the Eurythmics. And this album, when it came out, just exploded. Let me see if this song made it to the top of the charts. Let's see.
It was close. Pretty sure it was close. I love these guys.
But it had 4 singles. This Is the House, The Walk, Love a Stranger, and Sweet Dreams are made of this. That was the big one that kind of took the band to a whole new stratosphere.
Her voice is awesome. Her aesthetic was shocking and awesome at the time, with the red hair, and the album cover is pretty basic, just kind of a stripe down the middle and Annie there holding a heart in her hand with a glove. Have you been a fan of these guys from the beginning?
Yeah, I think I got this when it was released.
It seems like right up your alley.
Yeah. They were a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
Not really mainstream.
No.
But very ethereal.
Did this come out in 83 or 84?
83.
Okay. So I was 9.
But the singles, a lot of singles, 3 of the singles were released in 82. But the album didn't even come out until 83.
So I was like 8, 9 years old. I remember the first time I saw them, they scared the living hell out of me. Because her with the buzz cut and the bright orange hair, it just, it was a lot for my little pre-teen mind.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
To calculate.
This was their second release.
Yep.
3 albums. Not a lot, but I think the Rhythmics are a pretty well-known band.
I have their 3rd record, the one after
Touch.
this. Yeah, and that's a really good one too. Dave Stewart is just awesome. just a great guitarist, great musician. He's a producer. He's produced a lot of records for a lot of people if you start digging into his biography.
Oh, yeah. And they're very much an MTV band. I mean,
yeah.
The video for Sweet Dreams was, I'm sure it was a #1 request on MTV.
Oh, I'm sure it was too.
Without a doubt. I mean, that exploded the band into a whole new stratosphere.
Yeah, I think the shock value of the visual of the band definitely helped. And it's not an accident. These people aren't dummies. I mean,
No.
the record company people aren't dummies either, even though it seems like it a lot of the time. No, the Eurythmics are one of my favorites, and I think that they have aged well. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're, I mean, the fact that they're still relevant.
Well, they're still relevant, and what I mean is that you listen to them. A lot of times you'll listen to bands from the late 70s or 80s in that new wave or post-punk.
And it sounds very 80s.
Dated.
Yes.
And, I mean, this sounds like something that could have been released a year ago.
Yeah,
to me.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons I love them. Have you taken care of this record?
I'm sure I have.
I'm sure you have.
I haven't taken very good care of the jacket, which is pretty well known with me. But the album,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There's no cat people touching these records.
Yeah, there's hairs.
Well, you're going to have that.
And, you know, the funny thing is the last time I probably played this was in college.
Oh, yeah. That's funny.
It's been a bit.
Yeah. It's so funny how these things are little time capsules. If you just step back and think about it, it's a piece of plastic that has music. I mean, that a piece of metal digs into, and it plays music. Everybody looks at it as an archaic, like old school thing, and it is.
It is.
But at the same time, isn't it amazing?
It's pretty incredible.
And it's analog. You know, even digital music just amazes me.
Yeah.
The fact that we've found ways to permanently record music on a piece of plastic like that, it just blows my mind. And I'm not high right now, I promise.
And you gotta take good care of your records, or they sound.
You know, even though I scratched the hell out of my mom and dad's Beatles records, you're welcome, Jason Russell.
He got 3 mentions on this show.
Did he?
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Well,
that makes up for the ones.
Yeah. His eyebrows going up. He's perking up down in Nashville, Tennessee. I always, after I got to probably 6, 7, 8 years old, I always respected the records and took care of my music, my CDs. I never grabbed and put my fingerprints on. I mean, people thought CDs were like indestructible. And
yeah.
just
you can just throw them.
Yeah, go play Frisbee with them in the quad and throw it in your freaking CD player. No, I took care of all of my stuff because I had a healthy respect for the amount of money and the amount of time it took to collect and curate a really cool collection. So, yeah.
I'm proud of you.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Dad.
Thanks, Dad.
Okay, you want to see my next one?
I'm ready.
Are you done with the Eurythmics?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to say, on the wide shot, this album cover may shock some of you. For all I know, YouTube might blur it out or not allow us to put it up here, but I'm putting this up here because I really love the record. And this is the Pretty Reckless.
Oh, they just had a new release.
Yeah,
they
have a new release of like some cover albums and some re-recordings of their own songs. I think it's called Other Worlds, and she's naked on that one too. This is Taylor Momsen, the little girl that played Cindy Lou Who in Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and she's a rocker, and she loves rock music, and her band is fantastic, and she insists on being naked on the album covers, which, hey, whatever, man.
It's
Go
tasteful.
It is. It's tasteful. The song Death by Rock and Roll is just a banger, and I love it. And I love the fact that she is such a forthcoming woman and is comfortable enough with her own self and her own image. Nobody's making her do this. This is her choice. And there is a shock value to it.
Sure.
And there is I'm going to sell some records by being naked on. I'm not going to open the gatefold because it's a lot more revealing than this. I'll show you that after we record. But it's just a great album. This came out in February of 2021. It's the band's first album released with their new label, Fearless Records. And it's also the band's first album since the death of her longtime producer, Kato Kandwala. I think he was who they worked with from the beginning, and I think he died in a motorcycle accident. And so that's what kind of inspired the death theme for this.
Yeah, and she's on a
she's
headstone or a cemetery plot.
Yeah. A lot of artists that exist in that world with the shock value, with the nudity. The one that comes to mind is Wendy O. Williams.
Oh, yeah.
And
I need to get some plasmatics.
Some plasmatic records would be cool. And I've seen them here and there.
Yeah.
But I think in her case, she was an artist, a performance artist, a musician. And I think that her image overshadowed
the music.
I
agree 100% because I remember when they were out that nobody really took them very serious because they're like, the plasmatics, she's doing her thing.
Yeah.
But really, the music's really pretty darn good. I've listened to a couple of them on a podcast I listened to. I'm like, wow, that's the plasmatics. I got to get more.
Yeah, I think that this is just my impression of her. But at the time that the plasmatics were on the scene, women were getting no attention. I mean,
no.
Joan Jett was first starting out, fresh out of the Runaways. Pat Benatar was more in the pop-leaning side, less rock-leaning side. Plus, Pat and her husband, Neil Giraldo, they didn't write all of those songs that they're famous for. I love them to death and respect the hell out of them, but, I think that women had to go to extremes to a degree to get the attention that they really deserved.
Yeah.
At that point. And, she's doing that. She's going to an extreme here, but I guarantee you they'd sell a lot fewer records if it wasn't that extreme of a cover. So you've got Death by Rock and Roll, Only Love Can Save Me Now, which is also a great song. And So It Went, 25. My Boxes Got So High, Broomsticks, Witches Burn. That's another good one. Standing at the Wall, Turning Gold, Rock and Roll Heaven, and Harley Darling. So
you've played Pretty Reckless for me before. Yeah. They're very just straight up rock and roll.
Yeah, straight up rock. Kind of alt feeling a bit. But yeah, I love her voice. She's really got a great voice that lends itself to this type of music. And it's just so crazy that she's Cindy Lou Who.
There are a few actresses who've branched out into the music scene who've really turned it into something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just, I'm going to sing their praises because, her band is great, And there aren't that many like rocking bands that are out right now that are popular that I love. I mean, a lot of them that I hear on any radio station, if it's a newer band, I mean, so much of it sounds the same.
And I don't even hear Pretty Reckless on, I listen to like a college podcast or a college XM radio station. I never hear Pretty Reckless on there.
Yeah. Pretty Reckless, Death by Rock and Roll.
All right. Since you mentioned her, this will be my next, Pat Benatar.
Yes.
In the Heat of Night. This isn't necessarily my favorite Pat Benatar album, but there's some big songs on this album.
Yeah.
And, you can pick up Pat Benatar's stuff for a very reasonable price.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, they sold a lot of records.
Yeah.
For sure. It's interesting. Some artists that you would expect to not see a lot and you would expect it to be more rare or worth more aren't. I mean, the Beatles are a perfect example.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the Beatles stuff is not that expensive. And you see Pat Benatar all over the place.
And the albums aren't usually worked. They're in
Right.
pretty good shape.
Yeah.
I mean, people really just listen to this music to listen to the music.
Yeah, I think that speaks to just how much she was out there and how many albums they put out. This has one of my favorites is her version of I Need a Lover.
Oh, yeah.
The Mellencamp tune.
Yeah. I like her version much better.
It's shorter.
Yeah.
It's more of a pop radio friendly version, but if you think you know how to love me, in the heat of the night, my clone sleeps alone. We live for love, rated X, don't let it show. No, you don't, and so sincere.
And the first song, Heartbreaker. Which, for some reason, somebody decided to
highlight
in red.
Was it Lady D?
It wasn't Lady D. This came out in 79. And by 80, you're in top pop charts. In the Heat of the Night was listed as number 7.
Okay.
And Heartbreaker is a song that, heck, it still gets played on the radio today.
It's a staple on classic rock radio. It's one of the 25 songs that classic rock radio plays.
Now, did you go with me to the show at Cedia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which
to Pat Benatar at the Roof?
No, I did not. I didn't go to that show.
Yeah, that was a fun show.
Oh, I bet.
Because
at the Roof?
At the Roof. It was a very small, intimate show.
Yeah.
We were right up front. It was incredible.
I wish I'd gone.
Yeah.
I know I was probably working that show. I probably had another gig somewhere.
Because that was the time when they'd turned touring into like a family affair.
Mm-hmm.
And I think her son was playing drums.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, she absolutely deserved to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah. It was long overdue.
And I think Joan Jett getting inducted a few years ago really opened that door for her. I mean, it shouldn't take that, but it has taken all kinds, and she was all over the place for basically the first half of that decade.
Yeah. Can you believe Heartbreaker only reached number 25 on the Billboard
It seems like it was a sleeper.
Yeah.
Like it. People didn't realize how great it was until after the album had been out for so long. Yeah.
Well, and it's the debut record. So.
Right. I wouldn't have guessed that. I would have guessed that it would have been higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have guessed it was a number 1 hit.
Yeah.
But
no, she's great, man. And still doing it. Still beautiful. Still has a great voice.
Yeah.
Neil Giraldo's just a fantastic musician and guitarist. They're a great team. A success story.
Yeah. A husband and wife who've not broken up.
Yeah. They've been together for like 50 years. It's amazing. No, that's a good call, man.
Yeah.
St. Vincent.
Oh.
Mass Seduction. This came out in 2017. This peaked at number 10 on the Billboard Top 200, becoming her first top 10 album in the U.S. It received universal acclaim and was the 4th most mentioned in critics' year-end lists for 2017. Mass Seduction won the award for Best Recording Package and Best Rock Song for its title track, and was also nominated for Best Alternative Music Album. I don't know what it is about St. Vincent. She is just so off the beaten path.
She's an amazing guitar player.
She's just a great guitar player. She's got her own guitar. Music Man makes her special, or her namesake guitar. It's kind of a weird shape. And my favorite song on this, though, there she is, like her head and her arm. My favorite song on this is Los Angeles. And if you haven't heard that song, go listen to it, because it's basically about, people trying to stop the aging process. And it's such a great record. And she's one of those. She reminds me of like a female David Byrne.
Yeah.
Because almost every record is different.
Yeah.
Or there are little things that tie in and out of the record. And I think I saw her on one of the late night shows, and she was playing Los Angeles, and I'm like, I'm buying that, and I got it the next day. The hype sticker is a rectangle, and it's kind of clear. The whole aesthetic of this record reminds me of Talking Heads.
It's very much like that.
Yeah, and she did an album with David Byrne, which is great, but it's pretty out there too.
Yeah. So that's a great analogy. She is very much a female David Byrne.
Yeah, and speaking of David Byrne and the Talking Heads, they were just featured on 60 Minutes last week. David was. They interviewed David, and he spoke about the whole Talking Heads thing. I think he actually admitted that he handled the breakup of that band poorly, which, who knows, that could thaw the relations out a bit. I'd love to see Talking Heads get back together.
Oh, yeah.
That would be huge. They're one of the ones. They're on my list. I've been very lucky to be able to see a lot of the bands that I've wanted to, but they're at the very top.
Yeah, they're very, very much up there.
Did you ever see them?
No.
Oh, gosh, that surprises me.
It was just, by the time I was going to a bunch of shows, and they never, that was one of the things in the 80s that we always talked about. None of the good bands that we wanted to see ever came to Indy.
Yeah.
So you had to go to Chicago or
Cincinnati,
somewhere else to see a band.
Yeah. St. Vincent, she has kind of been a contemporary trailblazer for women. And the last time she came through town, I was going to go see her, but she didn't play with a band. So I ended up not going, but I heard the show was awesome.
Yeah, but I've heard every time she puts on a show, it's amazing.
Yeah, she's really great. And she also seems to have a really good sense of humor about herself and doesn't take herself too seriously, which is a good example for any artist, whether it's a male or female. And I think her growing popularity is a direct result, not just of the quality of the music, not just of the change in aesthetic from album to album, but I think it's really attributed to that, not taking yourself so seriously.
Not being a stick in the mud rock star.
Right. Yep.
That's a good one.
I also brought her record Marry Me, which is another favorite, but I wanted to talk about that one.
That's a brilliant one.
Yep. What's next for you?
Next. Well, more classic. Heart.
Oh, so good.
You got to talk about the Wilsons.
Yeah.
So this album was released in May of 1977 by Portrait Records.
Okay.
Which
Little Queen, right?
Yeah, Little Queen. Sorry, I always forget to mention the name of the record. But it was their follow-up to Dreamboat Annie, which was a big, big hit. And it resulted, I think, a contract dispute with Mushroom Records, which Dreamboat Annie was on, resulted in the group signing with the newly formed Portrait Records, which it's a division of CBS, now Sony. Barracuda.
Such a classic.
Yeah.
A classic riff.
Yeah.
Classic song.
Little Queen. You've heard that song.
Yes.
But really, the big one's Barracuda.
Yeah. Kick It Out is another big one.
Yeah, Kick It Out.
And the whole record is great. You know, I have a couple Heart records, and I may or may not have brought one today. I need to get more of their stuff.
Yeah.
Because, man, I know that they don't have the same band as they did during this classic lineup period, and there's tension between the sisters and a lot of BS. A lot of BS that probably would have happened 15 years ago. We never would have heard of it, but with social media and instant news and, you know, all of the bad stuff being promoted more than the good stuff, we hear about it. But the band that they had behind them, just fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, Ann Wilson's voice, killer. Nancy Wilson's voice and guitar, killer. these two are really trailblazers.
Oh yeah.
Because you're talking about two women in a rock band, not pop stars, in a rock band.
Yeah.
That are sisters. I mean, that's to make that work, and with the differing personalities, that's got to be a challenge in the first place. But I respect the hell out of them, and they're still making music and touring. I don't think they're touring together, but that's neither here nor there. I think both of them put out solo records in the last year or two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they shared they shared writing credits on most songs. Mm-hmm. So I mean it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. It's a great story, and I love that picture on the back. They look like a band of gypsies or something.
Yeah.
Guy with the arrow.
There they are in the front.
Yeah.
The gypsies.
Very good band. And I the one that I brought, I'll talk about it real quick, is the self-titled record from I think 84 or 85.
Oh.
That basically brought them back and had the hits Alone and
yeah, pull it out. We're talking about Heart, so let's give some love to another.
Yeah,
Heart song.
we'll talk about this.
Oh,
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is kind of the 80s hair band version of Heart, which they have a tricky relationship with that part of their career because they didn't write most of these songs, but they had like 3 hits on this.
They had some big. It was
shit.
very much like a Cheap Trick coming back in the 80s.
If Looks Could Kill, What About Love, Never, These Dreams, The Wolf. I mean, What About Love, Never, and These Dreams were all 3 hits.
Oh, yeah.
All Eyes, Nobody Home, Nothing at All, which is my favorite song on this record, by the way. What He Don't Know, and Shell Shock. And this was produced and engineered by Ron Nevison, and he was kind of that kind of producer who the bands that he produced, he brought the best songs he could to them. And, that formula worked for them because this basically resuscitated their career completely.
Yeah, and they were a Seattle band before Seattle was a big thing.
Yeah, and I think that they
formed in 73 in Seattle.
Wow. Yeah. And all of those Seattle bands are big fans of Heart too, so. But I just wanted to mention that. I didn't know if you'd bring a Heart record or not, but I figured you would, so. It's got to be interesting becoming famous and popular when they did, having the hits that they did early in their career, and then that changing. There always seems to be, an expiration date for a band, and then when they do have a hit, that pressure has got to be tremendous to follow that up and continue that upward mobility. But for 99% of the bands out there, that is an impossibility. So
yeah.
Coming back and having this resurgence brought the band. It's the reason we're talking about the band right now.
Oh, yeah.
But they have such a hard time with that because the songs weren't necessarily theirs. And I think some of the folks in the band with them, they didn't end on good terms with. So, but I love Heart. I love the Wilson sisters. And if you haven't heard Ann Wilson's performance of Stairway to Heaven when Led Zeppelin was at the Kennedy Honors, go look that up because
it's really phenomenal.
What an incredible performance.
Album reached number 1, 5 million copies.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, that's big.
In the mid-'80s to sell 5 million copies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not be Michael Jackson or Van Halen. That's pretty huge. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that one. So we've covered Heart from the genesis to the comeback.
That's awesome.
That's nice.
Am I next?
Yeah.
Okay.
Technically, yes.
Well, you knew that we weren't going to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is the Runaways. And now the Runaways. This is the last Runaways album before disbanding. The album was issued by Cherry Red Records in the UK and was not released in the United States in 1978. In 1981, Rhino reissued it as a picture disc and we know how great picture discs sound.
Oh, yeah.
And a cassette under the title Little Lost Girls with a different cover photo and a different sequence of the songs. At the beginning of the recording sessions, Vicky Blue left the band, and the bass lines on the tracks are actually played by none other than rock star badass Lita Ford. And during the tumultuous recording of the album, their manager observed producer John Alcock's attempts to ultimately phase Joan Jett out of the proceedings, hence Sandy West and Lita Ford's individual solo spots, Sandy's with Right Now, which she wrote and sang lead on, and Lita's I'm a Million, featuring Ford's first lead vocal on a record. Joan later said that she had a funny feeling she was about to get fired from the band that she helped create. Dwayne Hitchings is thanked in the credits for his work on keyboards. They do a version of Black Leather, which is originally written by Sex Pistols members Steve Jones and Paul Cook for their former band. And soon after hiring the new bassist Laurie McAllister, Jett and Ford jointly dissolved the Runaways, citing musical differences, of course, within the group. Ford and West then attempted to start a new, harder band with Alcock producing, but nothing became of these sessions. But this is a great record. This version of it starts with Saturday Night Special, 8 days a week, Mama, We're All Crazy Now, which is Slade. Also made...
it's one of those metal bands.
Also made famous by Quiet Riot.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I'm a Million, Right Now, Takeover, My Buddy and Me, Little Lost Girls, and Black Leather. So.
Well, and the Runaways got screwed over so many times.
Yeah. I love the pictures on here. But they are a trailblazing.
Yeah, they were an all-female band.
Yeah. I mean, they were the first like that. And a lot of bad stuff happened to them. They took the hit in many different ways.
Oh, yeah.
But you've got Joan, you've got Lita, both of them incredible solo careers. You got Cherie Currie and the other members of the Runaways. You know, they all, I think, suffered after that. Yeah. For sure.
It's a tale that we've heard many times in the music business, but I'm glad Lita and Joan were able to take it and push their own careers to another level.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I had any Lita Ford on vinyl, I would have definitely brought that in because I love her. I love her voice. Her aesthetic is cool. She kind of went more the heavy metal route.
And Joan stayed true to kind of the Runaways' roots.
Right, the rock.
Yeah, the kind of punky new wave rock.
Yeah, but I couldn't not bring this Runaways.
Oh, that's a great one.
You know, I got this at, you were with me when I bought this, actually. I bought it at Irvington Vinyl when they had the going out of business sale.
Yeah.
And there's a little bio inside. And
a little.
Yeah, a lot of bio. So you're going to have to put your helpers on to read this. I love Joan with the tuxedo. And
they're all wearing tuxedos, but Joan's like, look at me.
Yeah, it's very cool. Lita looks like she just got back from Fantasy Island.
Yeah.
What's your next one, man?
Oh, man, that was a good one. 1993, The Breeders' Last Splash.
What a great record, man.
And I mean,
this is a tough one to find.
Yeah, it is. It was really hard to find. And when I found it, I'm like, I'm grabbing it.
Yeah. That's what you got to do.
It does not show up very often.
No, that's what you got to do if you're a new listener or viewer or both, and you're just starting your collection. If you see something you like, you got the cake to make it happen. Buy it.
Yeah, because you won't regret buying something, but you'll regret not buying.
You'll regret not buying, and this is why. You'll regret not buying it because you didn't buy it and you don't have it. But then you'll start to see the price of whatever it is that you did not buy just go up and up and up and up and up. And until they do another re-release, you're not going to get it for a decent price.
When this came out, I mean, they got looped in with the that whole Seattle scene. because that's, they were.
I'm doing my Vanna White version over here. I got to keep Keith entertained. I think he finished his coffee 45 minutes ago.
Even though they came out in 93, music videos were still a big thing.
Yes.
Spike Jonze directed Cannonball.
Oh, was that Spike?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So that was huge. I mean, he was doing stuff with the Beastie Boys.
Spike Jonze, his videos are amazing.
Yeah.
And he was, I think all the music videos he directed, I love all the bands.
He took the art form to like almost a cinematic level.
Yeah, he really did.
Yeah.
There's a reason he went on to bigger and better things.
Yeah. Very interesting take on music videos. I wish music videos still mattered, but they don't anymore.
The two big songs, Cannonball and Divine Hammer.
Yeah. Cannonball is a banger.
Oh, yeah.
I've said banger twice.
I said it once too.
Did you?
Yeah.
We're right at the cusp of 2019.
Yeah. But this was originally a side project.
Okay.
For Kim Deal.
Kim Deal.
Who was in the Pixies.
In the Pixies, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of, that's kind of cool when a side project really takes off like this, because I don't know if they're bigger. They're not bigger than the Pixies, but this album really sent them into a
whole new level.
A whole new level, yeah.
And did they do much after this? I think they ended up breaking up, and then
they broke up and then got back together, and they are from Dayton,
Ohio.
And I didn't know this, but Kim and Kelly are twins.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that either.
Kim and Kelly Deal are twins.
I always thought they looked alike, but I didn't know they were twins.
Well, that's why they look so much alike.
They could be identical or fraternal. I bet they're fraternal.
They may be.
I don't know. I'm not a biologist. I'm a rockologist. Know what that means. No, that's a great call, man. I know that. When did this come out? This repop?
Oh, the repop? I have no idea.
Because this is a repop.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's not an original. I mean, if you find an original 90s record, you're going to lay down some fat cash.
Yeah.
They don't pop up that much.
No.
And when they do, there's a lot of money attached to them.
People hold on to them.
Yeah.
That's great, man. Is this a colored vinyl? Or
I don't know.
Give me a check.
Take it out.
Yeah, let's whip it out.
It might be on classic black.
It's got a really nice slip case inside, like a slip cover. I really like when they do. Yeah, it's just classic black. Very cool. Look at that. Very nice. I never dug into the breeders. I always and I was kind of, and they're not grunge necessarily. I kind of consider them more like garage rock. But when I first heard this, I was instantly like, wow, that's a different take on what was going on at the time. And that's great that they became so popular.
It was the early incarnations of the band were with Kim Deal and Tanya Donnelly. And again, Tanya Donnelly was with Throwing Muses. So this side project then just kind of exploded. Here's a funny little bit. Kim's sister Kelly was brought into the band as the third guitarist, though at the time Kelly famously had never played guitar before joining the band. I love those stories.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Hard to believe, but very, very awesome. Very cool.
3 guitars.
Why not, man?
Yeah, that's some rock and roll.
That's Iron Maiden right there. I'm sticking this back in here. And then I love the cover too, man.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what the hell I'm looking at. It almost looks like a lollipop in the shape of a heart. Cool, man. Easy to read on the spine. That's my kind of packaging. There was probably a hype sticker.
There
somewhere.
Probably was. It's in the hype sticker bag.
The hype sticker locker. That's a good call, man. I'm sorry if it F's stuff up. Chic, C'est Chic. This has Le Freak on it. And I just love Nile Rodgers. I love that.
Oh, yeah.
That funk pop combination. This is an inherited record I got from my wife's aunt and uncle. And man, they had a lot of like R&B and funk in their collection, and I just love it. And you throw this on the turntable and listen to it, it's fantastic. Listen to some of the personnel on here. You've got Alpha Anderson, lead vocals, Diva Gray on lead vocals, David Lasley, vocals, Lucy Martin on vocals, Luther Vandross sang on this.
Luther.
Nile Rodgers on guitar and vocals. The list goes on and on and on. And this charted on the U.S. Billboard Top 200 at 30, and then the U.S. Top R&B Hip Hop Albums Billboard, it was number 1. It's really their highest charting record, and it's the reason we're still talking about Nile Rodgers.
Yeah.
You know, who recently worked with Daft Punk and had a huge hit.
Well, and he produce David Bowie?
Yeah, oh yeah, he produced David Bowie in the 80s, and that was a cool collision of rock, art rock, and funk all wrapped into one. And I love this picture on the front. They're just in their, they're in their chateau.
Lounging.
More pictures on the back. You can't argue with the success of it. I mean, it seems like this album and this group has just become more and more popular since Daft Punk's success too. So, yeah, Nile is one of the best guitarists out there and one of the best producers out there.
Yeah, if you look at the list of stuff he's produced, it's like there's going to be a bunch of ahas. He's like Todd Rundgren.
Yeah, and letting the ladies take the lead with the vocals in this group. I mean, there's a lot of examples of that. I've got some Pointer Sisters records. I didn't bring those. You've got Chic. They knew what they were doing. This was, disco had happened and was kind of in its waning years. And when did I say this came out? October 1978. So, or actually released in August of 78. So disco was in full effect.
Yeah.
And they're kind of lumped in with disco too, but I don't really consider them a disco group.
No, they were a dance band. But they wound up being with disco just because they had great dance songs.
And the timing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I had to bring this. I know that Nile has also been struggling with cancer the last 5 years or so. So, but it's great to see him kind of get that respect, have that comeuppance that he really deserves. And I don't know why it is, man. I love listening to the funk. You got Chic Shear, La Freak, Savoir Faire, Happy Man, I Want Your Love, At Last I Am Free, Sometimes You Win, Funny Bone. It's a great record, man. Produced by Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards for the Chic Organization Limited.
I like that.
I do too. That's great.
That's a good one.
What's your next one?
All right. The next one, we're going to be a little weird. Laurie Anderson, Big Science. And I've talked about Laurie Anderson before. She was Lou Reed's wife. And Laurie Anderson, I've seen Laurie. It's performance art for sure. I mean, talk singer, but it's just very different music. And this is the album that Oh Superman, probably her best known song, is on. And there's Laurie on the back cover playing a violin with a tube light on it. I mean, her shows are everything that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of vocal. She does things with vocals like other artists do with guitars.
Kind of performance artish.
Yeah, but I mean the vocals, it's not just her voice. It's her voice going into a voice box turned into a male voice.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very it's very poetic, I guess. And this album, she'd previously recorded an album, and it was a collaboration with William Burroughs and John Gerono.
Wow.
And she's very much out there. It's hard to even lump it in with anything. It's bizarre.
Seems like she was made to be with someone like Lou Reed.
Yeah, they were a great team. It's
match made in heaven.
Yes, avant-garde pop electronic.
Okay,
that's a good way. And there's not going to be any charting stuff from this.
You mean you're not going to go like cruising on a Friday night listening to Laurie Anderson?
Yeah, I mean it. Let's see Big Science and Heartbreak each sold 100. It sold 100,000 copies in the U.S. So
that's not bad.
It's not bad, but it's not. I mean, we're not getting close to the million mark.
That's not bad for something so out there, right?
Yeah.
What was the last record of hers that you spoke about? Was it? It was like a.
That was the live 5-album box set.
Wow. Yeah.
And that, let's see, what did that sell? 40,000.
Hey, you know, for an artist like that, selling 100,000 or 40,000 copies of a record may as well be $1 million, right?
Yeah.
And she's still alive.
Yeah, she was initially trained in violin and sculpting. So
I bet she does them together sometimes.
Sure.
Why not?
And the fact that I'm even bringing this up as a kind of a rock album is out there.
Yeah. What year again?
82.
Oh, early 80s. I love the cover of this.
It's not for everybody.
Right.
And she was she experimented with like even recording music, the way music's recorded.
Yeah. Well, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
This is the only record I have by these guys because
I have that one too.
Do you?
I considered it.
Desperate by the Divinyls. This came out in 1983. This is their first studio album, but I think they had a live album before that. And they're from Australia. Everybody knows them for the song I Touch Myself, which is just an earworm. Just an amazingly good song. But this came out in 1983 on Chrysalis Records. Contains the hits Boys in Town, Science Fiction, and Siren. They formed in 1980, founded by Mark McEntee, fronted by lead singer Chrissy Amphlett. And I just love, they kind of remind me of maybe a more like rocking version of the B-52s.
Yeah.
Less party band, more straight ahead rock. But if you listen to their stuff, it's all really catchy.
And music videos help them.
Oh, the music videos help them.
Help their career big
in
time.
A very huge way. I got this in New York City when I went to that flea
market.
That
was
for $8. I've been looking for I don't see any of their stuff.
No.
Most of the time.
Did she recently pass away?
I think so. She passed away in 2013. R.I.P. Chrissy. Her voice was fantastic. And their music was very pop oriented, but had that rock edge to it. And I just love listening to any of it. I got this and threw it on when I got home, and I'm like, oh man, why haven't I been listening to them more often?
You know, it's weird. Australian bands, I almost always like bands from Australia.
Isn't that strange?
And
even the off the beaten path ones, like one of my favorite Australian bands is Midnight Oil.
Oh.
When Diesel and Dust came out.
Yeah.
Beds Are Burning. That just a strange look music that really didn't fit into anything.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know why it is that Australian artists just are so likable.
Yeah, I love almost every band from Australia.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Men at Work, Colin Hay. In Men at Work, you've got the Bee Gees, who are originally Australian. AC/DC is originally Australian.
And nobody thinks about INXS.
INXS. Oh, you're right.
It just goes on and on.
It does. But she was the perfect singer for this band,
yes.
I think. And the song they are most known for, it was very risque.
Oh yeah, and the video was risque.
Yeah, yeah. But I just love this band, and every time I hear them, it just makes me smile. They're just great, and it's not one that you hear people talk about a lot. You know, I mean, they basically had one huge hit, but they were. I didn't even know that they were around that early. I thought that I Touch Myself was like their first record, but I think it was their third or fourth.
Yeah, the Dresden Dolls.
Oh, nice.
The Virginia Monologues. And this is, I'm not really breaking the rules. It's a collection.
Right.
Yeah. It's a collection, a 3 LP collection. So and these records,
mm-hmm.
Each record is a different color.
Beautiful.
So this one is the
white and black, smoky.
I think each one's like a different one's like a red and black, but colored vinyl, it depends. Some people think it's a gimmick, but I really kind of like it.
It is so popular right now, man.
It's a fun surprise.
It is.
Like, I didn't expect this to be colored vinyl.
Yeah.
But when it showed up, it's like, oh, that's super cool.
And this is 3 records, right?
Yeah, 3 records.
That's a lot.
And I'm almost positive it's an MOV press.
Triple gatefold.
Yeah, number 2.
Ooh, see, those lower numbers, folks.
Yeah.
Those are the good ones.
And it was one of those I bought from an online retailer, and I didn't expect it to be an MOV press. I didn't expect the color vinyl. I certainly didn't expect number 2.
No.
But it's just one of those records that, it didn't sell a lot.
This is also kind of in the art rock.
Oh, yeah.
Category.
They're very much, it's like this is going to sound weird. They're like a more poppier version of Laurie Anderson. But they're
and the guy in the band was in another rock band.
It's Amanda Palmer is the female, and the male, I'm going to butcher his name, Brian Viglione.
Yep.
And they describe their style as Brachian punk cabaret.
Oh, okay. What was Brian? What band was Brian in? I know he was in another famous band.
He's done work with the Violent Femmes.
Yes.
I don't know that he was part of the original Femmes lineup or not.
Yeah,
No, definitely not, because he would have been a baby.
Yeah. It's just an interesting couple.
Yeah.
Kind of a...
cabaret rock music. It's very different.
It's niche.
It's
for
niche.
Sure.
Yeah.
But right up your alley.
I'm all about the niche artist.
And it's cool to throw that out there because we've had a nice cross section of different artists on this show, which is why I appreciate doing a show like this with you so much, because you're 9 times out of 10, we're not going to bring the same records. It happens. Or maybe sometimes we'll bring the same artists.
The Dolls were part of the underground dark cabaret movement. You didn't even know that existed.
Yes, I did.
And let's see. So their songs are very... they're different. Like, one song's called Sex Changes, Backstabber, Modern Moonlight, My Alcoholic Friends, which is a great song.
I can relate to that one.
Delia, Dirty Business, First Orgasm, Mrs. O, Shores of California, Necessary Evil. I mean, there are a lot of songs. There's 24 songs.
That's great.
And the one song that's not on here that I really want from the Dresden Dolls, but I mean, it's hard to find these records.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this one was only a limited release of 9,000 copies. But Coin Operated Boy. I discovered them in the digital era when I had some folks I worked with who were doing a lot of downloads, and so we were doing a lot of music sharing, and I loved them.
Yeah, well, that's cool when you hear something and it immediately latches like that. You know, we all have music like that, and sometimes it's off the beaten path type music. You know what I really love about this? I love the packaging. It's like a triple gatefold.
It's a triple gatefold.
And then you can read that so easily on the spine, that kind of thing. Like that St. Vincent record, because of the color of it, I didn't even have to look through my records. I just went up and grabbed it.
I mean, there's a
lot
in here.
And there's a lot of biographical stuff in here. That's really cool.
I mean, that'll keep you reading for a hot minute.
Well, and that kind of packaging is not cheap either.
No.
You know?
No.
That's very cool, man. Long live the punk cabaret.
Yeah. Amanda Palmer is a very different artist.
I'll have to check him out.
Yeah. Check out Amanda Palmer online. She's different.
I will do that. Well, that's a good one, man.
You're up.
I love the cast of characters in there. It kind of reads like a playbill almost.
Yeah.
So we're going from something that most people don't know about to something that almost all people know about, but I had to bring it because they kind of operated after the Runaways. They took what the Runaways accomplished and just ran with it. This is the Go-Go's, Beauty and the Beat. And this is the debut album from them. It was released in 1981 on IRS Records. I don't know if you realized that.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
That's not necessarily IRS's jam, though. I wouldn't have guessed that. I mean, I guess they are kind of new wave.
Yeah. They were really, I mean, they were part of that whole MTV new wave.
Yeah. I mean, MTV was so, MTV was a linchpin for so many of these groups, whether they're male or female. And that's something that's interesting, too. There's another truck full of our research showing up for the next show.
That's good.
The thing, when you think about it, even in the early 80s, MTV was a lot more balanced between the male artists and the female artists. And that balance kind of was lost later in the decade when, you know, the hard rock 80s rock bands kind of took over. It was all dudes again. But believe it or not, this reached number 1 on Billboard's top LPs and tape chart in March 1982, bolstered by its 2 big Hot 100 singles, Our Lips Are Sealed and We Got the Beat. The Go-Go's are so interesting because it took a long time for this album to really catch on. And then they were it.
Yeah,
for
they
a
were
while.
it.
They were kind of the representatives for the women in rock kind of thing. And I love the cover I've always loved the cover of this because it kind of just jokes. It's kind of a joke about, hey, we're women, we've got the masks on our face, and then there they are in the bathtub. But these girls were plugged into the music scene in LA.
Oh,
too.
yeah. I mean, it was the Go-Go's, Bangles, Bananarama. Those 3 all-female bands were massive.
Yeah. And I just, believe it or not, I just heard, we got some beeping going on. I just heard Lenny Kravitz speaking yesterday on a radio show. Kathy Valentine is the one that introduced Lenny to the guy that he's played guitar with since, like, he started.
Huh.
Isn't that interesting?
Was Lenny from L.A.?
No, I think he grew up in the Bahamas.
Okay.
But he was in LA, and it was after I think it might have been after his first or second album. He was looking for a guitarist to both collaborate with, record with. Lenny plays most of the things on his records.
Yeah.
And tour with. And Kathy Valentine is the reason that he found that guitarist. That night, she met him or ran into him because they knew each other. And he said he was looking for a guitarist. And she said, well, I got him right over there. And she pointed to him, and that's the guy. So, these girls are much more than meets the eye. I love that she's painting her toenails there, too. But the songs on here I'm going to read them from my computer because it's kind of hard to read that. But you've got Our Lips Are Sealed, How Much More, Tonight, Lust to Love, This Town, We Got the Beat, Fading Fast, Automatic, You Can't Walk in Your Sleep If You Can't Sleep, Skid Marks on My Heart, and Can't Stop the World. They were just a groundbreaking band. And
I love This Town.
They kind of became the poster children. But it's great that I think they were inducted into the Hall of Fame. It's not an easy industry for anybody, for male or female. I mean, the record companies and the record industry, it's a cutthroat thing. So you really have to respect anybody that can kind of run that gamut and come out the other side. And the Go-Go's have,
Absolutely.
And just those short rock and roll pop songs that get stuck in your head. I mean, they can do it just as well as any of the guys can.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot of fun talking about these records and these artists that we normally wouldn't. All it's done for me is reiterate the fact that I have a lot of albums with female artists, either on them or featured by female artists. And that's what I love about doing this show is it just refamiliarizes me with all of that stuff that I have. I mean, we talked about it with the Essentials album too,
right?
Or with the Essentials lists too. I mean, it is a challenge to go through and pick something that you're saying, this is the top of the heap.
Yeah.
In the midst of the heap.
Yeah.
What did you call it? The she sides?
She sides. Jacob. That was Jacob's idea.
Jacob Hansen's idea is she sides. I think we're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Coming up with these other
shows that are not essential.
We still got to do the unessentials too.
Yes. I tried to listen to the Captain and Tennille.
Yeah.
What is that record called?
Love Will Keep Us Together.
Yeah. That may be the title of the record, but that's why I got the song.
Right.
Or the album. And I got through that song. I made it through the first side, and I'm like, this has got to go.
That song is
I like that song, but I'm like, I cannot keep this record.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not going to listen to it again.
We'll do a purge show. We'll find a way to fit that in too. We want to thank everybody that's been supporting us. All of the social media contact has really been great. We've been a little more visible on there, and we're trying to do episodes more often.
Yeah.
And we have the video side going on YouTube now. We're uploading shows as we get them done, thanks to Jacob Hansen and Keith Toombs for being a part of the team there. But we still want your input on any shows that you think that you might like us to do, because I get ideas all the time, and I'll think of something, but I'll be like driving or something, and by the time I park,
it's gone.
It's gone. So, reach out to us on social media, subscribe to us on YouTube, check out those video versions of the shows. One of my really good friends and one of Keith's friends, Scott Meyer, just watched the show that you uploaded the other day, and he says he basically was like, oh, it's so cool and so great to see you guys. And I'm like, just in case you didn't get enough of us before, here's us on video. It's a pleasure to do this show, and I really do look forward to it.
Yeah.
And we put a lot of thought into it, and we put a lot of time and sweat equity into it. But just the fact that people are listening and people are watching, it makes it all worthwhile.
Yes, it really does.
Yeah. We have the Crossroads Music Show coming up in late April. But if you are anywhere near Indianapolis and you want to go to a great record show, come to the Crossroads Music Show, and we'll plug it in other shows too, and we'll certainly post all the information about it on our social media. But most of all, we just thank all of you guys for tuning in, sticking with us, and we're going to keep chugging along. We're almost at 50 episodes. Can you believe that?
Woohoo.
That's a lot of hours of us.
That's
yapping.
a lot of hours.
So for Wheels, I'm Jay, and we'll catch you all the next time around.